on the country's water challenges. And we now put the spotlight on the Nelson Mandela Bay region. Water leaks, a lack of maintenance on aging infrastructure, and a drought are just some of the reasons the metro's water supply is strained. Last year, you'll remember that the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Senzo Mchunu, established an intervention task team to come up with solutions to the water crisis there. Well, let's discuss this now, and we're joined by the Metro's Acting Executive Director for Infrastructure and Engineering. He is Joseph Tsatsire, who is in Gqeberha. Mr. Tsatsire, thank you very much for your time. Let's first of all find out what the water situation is in Nelson Mandela Bay. We have been saying it is strained for a very long time. What's the situation right now?
Thank you for the opportunity. I can still confirm that, our water situation hasn't improved. For the past couple of years, in fact 8 years, we actually been experiencing drought. And I think last time we had our dams full, was around September 2015. And I think it has been on a declining trend since then. As we speak and talking to you currently, we are actually, our combined dam levels are sitting at 13.8%. And obviously, give and take, this is plus or minus, 170 days. And I think, it means that we are actually still in a precarious position. But we are talking to our consumers. We are also implementing, interventions to ensure that, we don't hit day zero. Yeah. And we continue to have, water for economic production as well as basic consumption.
Yeah. Last month, Mr. Tsatsire, I had the Director General of Water and Sanitation in the studio, Dr. Sean Phillips, and he was very emphatic that day zero is not going to come in Nelson Mandela Bay. Can you say that with certainty as well? Do you hold the same conviction?
I hold the same conviction, and currently, as we are managing the situation on the ground, and partly one of the reasons that we are saying so is that, the metro has got, various sources, where it gets water from. We have got the western source, which is actually currently experiencing drought, and the dams, as I said, combined are sitting at 13. But we also have got another source from the Kharib system, which is not experiencing drought as we speak. And we are actually getting water from in fact, 2/3 of the water we are actually getting from the Kharib system, which is about 210 megaliters of water on a day-to-day basis. And this is actually assist us. This is actually assist us to ensure that, at least we continue to have a flow of water in our articulation in the city. And I think the only thing that we need to do is actually to reduce consumption of ration and get, water to each and everyone, that 210. As much as our consumption is about, 280 megaliters on a day-to-day basis. With the western sides, taken out the picture, we still have the 210, which we can, with the flexibility and redundancy which we have in our system, be able to give water to each and everyone in the city. Obviously for basic consumption, and we actually reduce, other luxuries, that we use for water.
Yeah. Before we get into infrastructure, the situation there, let's talk about this dire shortage of water in Gqeberha. How many water tankers are being fielded in Nelson Mandela Bay per day?
So, as I said, obviously we've got two sources, and I think the western source is running dry, and it's a supply plus or minus, just 500,000 of our residents, And in those areas, we have actually, installed what we call rainwater tankers, 89 of them in strategic areas. We also have got what we call collection points, where we have actually elected, standpipes from large circulation system. But these were actually constructed for emergency purposes. But as I speak to you now, our water situation is actually stabilized to an effect that everybody is actually getting piped water. And those facilities which we have actually erected are not standing idle up until such time, we reach a point where we require, to people water from those points. But as I speak to you now, we have managed to stabilize, and I think this is mainly to quite a number of interventions. And among others, we have actually embarked in diversification of water sources to include, bores as well, which are actually becoming a saving grace as we speak, because they're injecting at least 30 megaliters of water into the system. And it's actually giving us, the latitude to be able to stabilize the system.
Yeah. When you talk about stabilization of the water system in Nelson Mandela Bay, I'm reminded of your largest dam, which is Mpofu Dam. It was decommissioned recently because the extraction levels had gone so low that you had no choice but to shut it down. Where is the situation there?
The dam still remains decommissioned. Currently, we are not getting water out of it. We are actually getting water from another dam upstream of that is Churchill Dam. At least we are getting 30 million liters of water on a day-to-day basis. But from Mpofu, we are not getting anything. And I think one of the interventions that we have now, we actually pursuing, is to move what we call barge. The barge is just a floating pumps, which we are actually putting, on the surface of the dam to extract water. We have moved it from a point where it was further down, where where it is a little bit deeper, at least 4 meters deep. We're going to actually connect it with electricity. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to actually start again to actually extract water from that dam. But I think we are actually at a point where we are utilizing what we call dead storage, because we are below the level where we actually extract, through the conventional water tower. So that dam, if you like, it has failed hydraulically. And what we are actually doing now is to actually get the last water out of it, through floating pumps.
Yeah. With the levels so low, Mr. Tsatsire, we then talk about infrastructure, because if that is not well managed, it will worsen the situation. You don't want water leaks when you are in a crisis, in a drought situation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a point. I think it's a no-brainer that, water leaks contribute, to artificial, loss of water in the system. But I think I can tell you and guarantee you, across the world, each and every water utility, as part of its maintenance regime, has to deal with leaks. There is no water utility that does not have, a leak, in its distribution system. But I think we need to manage it in such a way that, efficiencies in terms of turnaround time, your maintenance regime in terms of pipe replacement is reasonable, that, we actually don't lose a lot of water. And I think for the past couple of weeks, months, we have actually added resources to reduce our turnaround time. Initially, it was actually about 10 to 15 working days to us to get to a leak. But I think with the resources that we have actually put under this program, we have actually reduced that to 5 to 7 days. And I think the aspiration is that we need to reduce it further to at least 2 days, so that we don't actually lose lots of water through leaks. If a leak has to go at least for 5 days, it's quite a lot of water that is actually being lost. And the idea is to reduce that to at least, 48 hours. And I think we continue to provide resources to be able to deal with that. And the other aspect is that, in a long-term view, which we have taken, is to actually incrementally, deal with pipe replacement, so that we can actually at least eliminate, reticulation failures in future, as a result of archaic infrastructure. But again, on a day-to-day basis, again, we deal with inefficiencies within the system. Some relate to human capital. And I think we are alive to streamlining those, ensure that at least, we reduce, artificial consumption, through leakages. Yeah.
Final question to you, Mr. Tsatsire, and very briefly, if you can. The mayor there, Retief Odendaal, was quoted in an article in the Mail and Guardian 2 weeks ago, and he was quoted as suggesting the following, and I quote, "When the taps ultimately run dry, it is the councillors that will have to answer to the concerned communities." He went on to say he is calling on the Water and Sanitation Department, including National Treasury, to walk and work this journey with the people of Nelson Mandela Bay. What kinds of interventions financially now would you say your municipality requires?
Look, there's been quite a number of, projects which has been initiated since 2010, especially to augment, our water resources. And I think this is the diversification of, water systems to improve our water mix. And I've mentioned in my, previously that, our bore water has been actually one of those. We have also diversified into maximization of, or optimization of the sources from the Kharib, which we are not experiencing drought. We have actually increased the zone to include, some areas which previously were not supplied water from those. And in total, the augmentation schemes that has been pursued by the institution totals 1.2 billion, to ensure that at least, we de-risk, the metro from droughts going forward. But again, from a water demand and conservation, there's quite a lot of discussion that is happening currently, led by the executive mayor, talking to communities to actually also play their part in reducing consumption. And we are saying at least if one consumes 50 liters per person per day, we should be sustainable into the future, create the necessary resilience that is required for us to be able to provide water in a sustainable approach. But again, those program of dealing with leaks and repairs and maintenance on an annual basis is actually received, increased budgets, to ensure that at least the maintenance regime of our infrastructure is up to scratch. At least, more than 5% of our annual budget is going to be directed towards dealing with leaks as well as repair-related aspects of the infrastructure. So there's quite a lot of resilience from a resilience strategy point of view, and actually, future-proofing, the city from droughts going into the future. There's quite a lot of investment, that has gone into water-related infrastructure.
Joseph Tsatsire, let me thank you very much for your time and indeed the information you have given us as a way of an update as to how Gqeberha is coping with the drought situation, because that's what they're facing there. It's a drought. He is the Acting Executive Director for Infrastructure and Engineering in that municipality.